obviously, guys, we got a story out of Jacksonville, which is a huge bounce back talking point here to the Bay Area. Trevor Lawrence, boom, getting paid, right? We got a contract for Trevor Lawrence that certainly meets his draft position, what he means to the Jacksonville Jaguars. But in terms of overall NFL performance, I mean, Trevor Lawrence is being paid like he's one of the best quarterbacks in football. He is not that. He is just meeting, his negotiation point right at a time where contracts and price points are going up everywhere. And it seems like anyone who is an established, entrenched starter in this league, someone whose snaps will not disappear with an injury. As soon as they're back healthy, they'll be put back into that starting lineup. Trevor Lawrence is that, but he is not much more than that. He's been in a bad situation that was made worse early in his career with the Urban Meyer hire. He had to overcome his team shortcomings, his coaching shortcomings, his own shortcomings, and he's pretty good. Like, Jacksonville's been okay with him. He has been okay statistically. 5 years, $275 million, $142 million guaranteed, $200 million guaranteed, $142 million at signing. He has a $55 million annual average salary, which ties Cincinnati Joe Burrows for the top paycheck in the NFL in terms of annual average value. He's not that good of a quarterback, but you don't have to be. Your contract needs to be up when it's time to reset the market. And the timing on Trevor Lawrence for this contract is the best thing about Trevor Lawrence getting this contract. He hit the market at the right time.
Well, it's just the way it is. I mean, it's just the way it goes. It's like whoever's the last guy to get paid is at this point seems like to be, there was a point where Jimmy Garoppolo was the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. So it really doesn't have anything to do with your status. It just has to do with how recently you signed. And 55 million AAV does make me think that there's a chance that the Niners are going to have to go to at least that spot and maybe even further for Brock Purdy. What do you think, Chase? I mean, now that you see 55 million for Trevor, people speculating that Dak could get 60. What do you think the Purdy number ultimately is going to be?
Yeah, a couple of things here. Not ideal for Trevor Lawrence to start his professional career with Urban Meyer as his head coach. I think Doug Peterson's done a decent job of trying to get him back on track the last couple of years after he started by throwing a lot of interceptions. And I think that resulted in him lacking some confidence coming out of Clemson, where he had so much success and was looked at as a generational quarterback. So the Jags are giving this deal to Lawrence, and he's a quarterback who's only 24 years old, but he's never thrown more than 25 touchdowns in 3 years. He's won just one playoff game. His career completion percentage is 63.8%. He's been wildly inconsistent. And honestly, even given the circumstances of what he's had to deal with in Jacksonville, he's been a little bit underwhelming considering he was supposed to be a generational quarterback. And all that Brock Purdy has done is be consistent and win and put up numbers and miss me with Kyle Shanahan and all of the weapons on the Niners make Brock Purdy. He is a byproduct of having all of those great weapons around him. He was number one in yards per attempt last year, number one in deep ball completion rate, number one in deep ball catchable rate percentage, number one in true passer rating, number one in QBR, number one in EPA, and number two in red zone completion percentage. So those numbers to me go to show that Brock Purdy's supporting cast and his head coach don't make him. He makes players better. So in turn, if Brock Purdy goes out in 2024 and he duplicates his success from last year, then the number that he's going to make as far as his salary could be richer than Trevor Lawrence. But here's why you shouldn't panic about that. The Patrick Mahomes deal, in which he got $500 million, it was only signed a few years ago, now looks like a bargain. This deal, if Trevor Lawrence ends up playing solid football and not great football, could end up being a good value play for an organization that's been a dumpster fire organization for a long time, but is looking for sustainability and consistency at the quarterback spot. And as you look ahead for Purdy, players like CJ Stroud, and the NFL salary cap continuing to increase, I think some of these quarterback salaries could be north of $60-65 million in the span of a couple of years. So in turn, if Purdy goes out there and balls out, he's going to be a very rich man. And I think for him and his agent, his team, they want to make up for what he's missed out on as far as the money that he hasn't been able to make so far in his NFL career. Trey Lance is going to cost the Niners more this year than Brock Purdy.
5 times as much.
Yep. It's funny when I see, a lot of people start talking about what Brock is going to make, they'll come up and they'll say, well, hopefully Brock's the kind of guy who doesn't want to come and rob the bank all by himself. He wants to leave a little on the table. I'm like, well, where do you think the start of his career has come from? Like, he's already given at the office. The 49ers have gotten as much of a bargain, I think, as they're going to get on Brock. Yep. And the next time around, they will have to pay through the nose. And look, this Trevor Lawrence contract, you're right, Chase. What is sticker shock today becomes a reasonable price point a couple of years from now. It happens in all of these contracts. We go, whoa. Now, I think I see that, Patrick Mahomes is the 7th highest paid quarterback in the league or something now is where it is. The baseline for Purdy's contract, though, has pretty much been plucked by this Lawrence deal, though. It really has. Same amount of years on their bodies, different situations, as completely opposite draft positions as you can find. But Purdy's success, Niner overall success, Purdy's production, I really think now has him looking at a 5-year, it'll be a bargain for the Niners if they bring him in 5 years, $280, probably be 5 years, $300, with at least 50% of that guaranteed, $150 million a year guarantee. I think that this is the opening negotiating point if I'm Team Purdy sitting down with the Niners looking at this Trevor Lawrence deal. I think that this really sets the parameters of what Purdy's looking at.
I think you're right. I think the other thing that I'm really already going to push back on is just, does it really matter? I mean, there's going to be people out there that if it's a record-setting deal are going to quickly shoot to the video of the 49ers can't win a Super Bowl paying Brock Purdy fill in the blank, whatever they paid him. I mean, is there, I realize 40 million's a lot, 45 million's a lot, 50 million's a lot, 55 million's a lot. I mean, the biggest move is that you're going from $1 million to whatever number you're going to. I'm not going to lose my mind if suddenly Brock Purdy makes $56 million a year. And it's like, you can't, if he had taken 48, they would have been a Super Bowl team, but at 56, he's screwing them. It's like, I can only wait for that video, but I personally think that it's one of those things we ought to just block out these numbers, and just acknowledge the fact that this is kind of reality in the NFL. If you're a quarterback that leads your team to the playoffs and you're considered in the top half of the league and your time comes up for an extension, you're going to get near record-setting money most likely.
Well, Purdy's abnormal price point will not be what is struck in the future. Purdy's abnormal price point is what we're coming out of, right? I mean, if you really want to think about it, the Purdy's about to make normal starting Pro Bowl caliber NFL quarterback money. There's nothing abstract about that. There's nothing abnormal about that. The only thing that's abnormal about that was his starting position as the last pick in the draft is now qualifying for that price point. I think we'll look back at this with not fear that the Niners can't win with Purdy at his future price point. I think we're going to look back at it and just say what opportunity was squandered when Purdy was at this other price point.
You could also look at it this way, right? The Niners have gotten Brock Purdy on such a great bargain that at the end of the day, when he gets this new deal, does it all kind of average out anyway? Brock Purdy finishes top 5 in MVP voting last year, leads the Niners to the Super Bowl, and played elite. He was top 5, top 10 in pretty much every major statistical category. And he was playing at a base salary of under $1 million. So you'll now get that production again if he plays in 2024 as if he performed in 2023 at that going rate. And yes, it is a massive multiplier to go from around $1 million, less than $1 million, to let's set the price tag at $50 million, so to speak. that all kind of averages out at the end of the day. And a few years ago, remember the outrage when Patrick Mahomes signed that deal? $500 million, one of the richest contracts in the history of American sports. Nobody is ever going to duplicate that. Well, now everybody's passing Patrick Mahomes. And if I would have told you then that a wide receiver in Justin Jefferson would be making $35 million per year, people would say, you're absolutely crazy. But that's the business and that's the power of the NFL. And as long as the league continues to have this much popularity, this much growth, and it continues to have a stranglehold on America, Brock Purdy might be making $50 million. And you might say, well, how do you fill out the rest of your team? You're also going to have more salary cap space allotted to all teams in the NFL naturally as the game continues to grow.
It all goes up. That's the thing. You know, the
it always goes up.
The price of your concert ticket will never go down. Your movie ticket will never be less than it is today. Today is the least amount of money you'll ever pay to walk into a movie for the rest of your life. There is no going backwards. So we know that this all goes in only one direction. The thing about the Lawrence deal, you know, I know that people are starting to want to wring their hands about what it might mean for Brock and this. What does this mean for the Jacksonville Jaguars? Because you look at the first 3 years of a career, Brock has dwarfed, you know, Trevor Lawrence's success story. Lawrence is now in that $55 million annual average salary. Again, ties him with Joe Burrow. He's the sixth quarterback to have an annual average salary above $50 million. So again, this is just the new normal. A quarterback making $50 million is the new normal. Goff is above 50. Herbert, Jackson, Jalen Hurts, they're above 50. Lawrence's new contract makes him the ninth quarterback with $100 million or more fully guaranteed on their deal. And this is a guy who had 60 turnovers in his first 3 seasons. An NFL high 21 turnovers just last season, 14 picks, 7 lost fumbles. There are only 11 quarterbacks who have ever made their debut since 78 and turned the ball over more in their first 3 seasons. Now, there are some Hall of Famers on this list. Warren Moon, Peyton Manning, John Elway are on that list. But, you know, Trevor has been a prolific turnover machine, and Brock Purdy is quite the opposite of that. So, you know, what I'm talking about is the baseline deal. If Team Brock Purdy a year from now, look at it this way. What does this year look like? What if it happens? What if the Niners ring that bell? What if he has another 4,000-yard, 30-plus touchdown, single-digit interception type seasons and the Niners win the Super Bowl? He might be at $65 million.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the thing's jumping. I mean, there's no question about it. It's just it's the going rate. And then, you know, we're going to have to see what kind of team can the Niners surround him with. And, you know, that's why you want to, you know, what were the Niners truly committed to when they said they were committed to Trey Lance? They were committed to having a rookie quarterback or a quarterback on a rookie deal to make their finances work. Well, they got that in Purdy, and then they kind of squandered after this year. They will have squandered that. So we'll see. Maybe this year they can get a Super Bowl done and they can win a Super Bowl inside Brock's rookie contract window. That was the goal. And we'll see if, you know, and it's, if you think about it, it's an incredibly difficult thing to come together because how many young quarterbacks play at a level of efficiency that enables their team to win a Super Bowl. It's a very difficult, you know, it's difficult to win a Super Bowl period, but it's almost like today you got to decide, do you want to try to structure it with a rookie deal and you know, surround that rookie quarterback or that young quarterback with a ton of talent and get it done that way? Or is it easier to get it done once your quarterback is making more money because he's now established and makes fewer mistakes and plays at a higher efficiency level? So, I mean, this is kind of like the current debate in the NFL. And you see teams, you know, rookie quarterbacks are very, very popular, but we all know the failure rate. I mean, even the Trevor Lawrence. I mean, look at that draft. Mac Jones traded to the Jags. Trey Lance traded to the Cowboys. Zach Wilson traded to the Broncos. What
quarterback has won a Super Bowl on their rookie
Justin
deal?
Fields traded to the Steelers. I mean, everybody in that draft is traded except for Davis Mills and Trevor.
What quarterbacks have won Super Bowls on their rookie deals? Patrick
Russell
Mahomes,
Wilson,
Ben Roethlisberger,
Russell Wilson.
Russell Wilson.
The Eagles made it to the Super Bowl when Carson Wentz was on his rookie deal.
I'll count that as one, even though he didn't get the game. Sure.
Yeah. And then the Bengals made it with Joe Burrow, but they didn't win.
Right. So a handful of examples, a small handful of examples of teams reaching the game with a rookie deal quarterback, and a couple of examples of they then won that game. But it's hard to do. And when you think about sports, there is no harder, we're back to square one, day one at any position that affects a team as greatly as it does the position of quarterback, because your team really can't be that much better than your quarterback. Or according to Brock Purdy's critics, it's vice versa with the 49ers for him and him alone, So,
but as these prices for these quarterbacks go up, now you're talking about, fill in the blank number. I mean, $55 million worth of players the Jaguars could have surrounded Trevor with, that they're now paying him that money. So that's money they can't on a hard cap surround him with, they can't use on a surrounding talent. So, I mean, it's a trade-off. It's a trade-off. And I think when you look at, the quarterbacks that have made the Super Bowl on their rookie contracts in recent years, it almost is starting to look like the blueprint. Like that might be the blueprint, is try to get a quarterback on a rookie deal and surround him with as much talent as you possibly can.
It's going to be a shame when the Niners cut Purdy at the end of this year just to get back to another rookie deal on their quarterback.
Tanner Mordecai, step up.
Yeah, exactly. Welcome,
Tanner Mordecai. Come on down.
Good to see you. Good to see you, Wisconsin. Like and subscribe. It is great to have you here. Like and subscribe to all three channels. Chase, I know you're more of a numbers guy than I think Larry and I are. You're better at them anyways. Did the salary cap jump $35 million year over year here? It's the biggest salary cap jump ever. Is it somewhere in that ballpark?
Yeah, year over year. Yeah.
Okay. I think we're going to look at a $40 to $50 million salary cap jump in the next season or two, just to accommodate the new price of quarterbacks and wide receivers.
Yep.
The NFL is going to have to do that.
Yeah.
So again, the money that you're worried about now, the cap number that you're worried about now, I think it's all about to greatly expand and grow. And if there really is an 18th game added to the schedule coming soon, I mean, if I'm the players, I want to sit down and I want to redo the entire CBA, and I'm going to address team pay as opposed to quarterback play. But I'm trying to get. I think it's a nuts idea, but I think it works. NFL team salary caps do not include the quarterback's salary, or some sort of forgiveness on an extreme quarterback salary. I think needs to be applied to these rosters to keep some normalcy in football. I mean, you're going to squeeze the back end of your roster so severely to accommodate, 12 to 15 quarterbacks in this league, that I think the NFLPA needs to do something about that. You can't have a billionaire class position and just working class football everywhere else.
You make a fair point too. And on top of that, I guess you could kind of look at it in a malleable sense like this, right? Let's say that the NFL salary cap going into 2025 does jump $40 to $45 million. And for everybody out there concerned about what Brock Purdy could make, what if you just think about it in this sense? Salary cap goes up $40 million. You're going to pay Brock Purdy 50 to 60. So a large chunk of that new money is going to go toward Purdy's new deal, right? But then the remainder of that money, you can still utilize that to fill out your roster. And I do think that that's a way to look at this if you're San Francisco. Also at the same time, and Larry and I have talked about this a lot, regardless of what happens this year, and Larry makes the point that is a totally fair point of teams taking advantage of quarterbacks on their rookie contracts. There's more pressure on the Niners to do that this year, knowing that Purdy is on the final year of his deal. If they win the Super Bowl, giving him a contract isn't going to be as hard as if they have a bad year or if they lose again, because then it's like, man, now we have to pay him all this money and we still haven't won.